All right, these two 27-foot Bailyn bins, we're modifying them on site on original foundation because it was actually below frost and actually a sufficient foundation. So these two 27-foot Bailyn grain bins. Bailyn is a grain bin. When I first saw them, I said, you know, I wouldn't modify a Bailyn unless they were already standing. And in this case, we got a sufficient foundation that we can use because it does go below frost. It's got a 6-inch cap on top of it. And when you come in here, there's this conversation pit. It's gonna have a fire pit in the middle of the room, but that's how thick the slab was. So once we get these roofs moved up into the air and mounted up there, then it's time to do the concrete in there. He's doing let that loud ass semi go by. He's doing in-floor heating. So after that, we cut some trenches in here because there's the kitchen. We'll cut some trenches for the plumbing, and then we'll end up pouring on top of that another 4 inches, and then we'll have posts and beams that are going around here that are underneath every floor joist. So I'm not going to build a radius wall. I'm going to use these stiffeners. These stiffeners, by the way, a Bailyn bin has to have these stiffeners because these walls are so flimsy. See if you can see that. I mean, look. Let me sit the phone down so you can actually see how much. Anyway, Bailyn bins are definitely not the popular ones to build out, but I do think they have a cool looking corrugation, and the fact I'm putting another grain bin in a grain bin, it's definitely gonna be super stout. But I was fighting this roof. It took me a whole, I think it was 6 hours by myself to put this one together. This wedge right here is 5 inches skinnier than the last panel, which means I've got to get the roof down, squashed down, so that everything can slide out. So I'm gonna have to cut the bottom of the stiffeners off so it can fan out. That way that widens up. This one actually fits, but this one really fought me because it took me about 16 hours to do this one. And I cut all the bottoms off, but you'll notice it's tight there, it's not there. It kind of does that. It's not even remotely round, and I'm putting something that is round. But once this gets lifted up and gets up there, that's where the roof will definitely make sure that everything is true and round. But with these long 20-foot tall walls, they got a little out askew when they did that. I went ahead and talked the guy into putting the roof upside down. Let's put the panels upside down so we see the rust and the patina. And I ended up using the old bolts because I didn't want shiny bolts on everything. The peak ring is actually not upside down, but these would typically be mounted underneath it, like right there. So this would never work. That would never work on a rainy situation ever. Everything's upside down, which was a challenge in itself because I had to put the bolt up this way and then get the nut on it. Before, if you just drop a bolt, gravity takes a hold of everything, but doing the nut up, that was kind of a pain in the keister. Anyway, I also had him find this because I want to use this. I gotta modify it a little bit, but this is what I'm going to use. This is what I'm going to use to lift the grain bin roofs, is this thing. So I'll end up cutting these, making a pyramid out of them, and using this. Probably hit it with some better welds because that doesn't look to me that they welded it all that great. So I'll secure that up tomorrow. Then after I get those roofs up, the crane's going to be here on Wednesday, so we're doing all that Wednesday. We're going to take the shipping container and put it on right here, right here, which I gotta weld it down to all these brackets right here. These brackets, gotta weld it to them, 24 inches on center. Then I gotta mount some into the concrete here, 24 inches on center. I'm actually cutting 20 feet off the side of this wall. I'm cutting it from here all the way to here. So I'm taking out almost a quarter of the bin wall. So in order to do that, I got to do shoring. So I got to get the roofs up in the air, and I got to cut some holes in the walls where the stiffeners are. Cut some holes in the wall and do a timber skeleton frame that goes through like a cage, and then we can hook onto it with his excavator and drag it all the way through, because it stops really close to right here.